Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin the Day Ghost. It's Friday, and that means it's time for another fun random show. Very often we do commentaries and mini-series reviews and things on Fridays. Tonight we're doing a Jurassic Park watch party. I meant to say mini-marathons. I don't know why I can never think of the word marathon when we do the show. It's like, what is that word? Oh yeah, marathon. But tonight we're not doing a marathon. Tonight we're doing...
We're going to marathon this one movie.
This one movie. It's going to be a marathon. And this is our first night that we put out a poll on Patreon. Quick plug for that. At the $5 tier, you can be on the Friday selection board as opposed to the Rewind selection board, which is for producers at the $10 tier, and that lets you help us decide what we're going to do on a Friday. And most times we do this show, sometimes we'll have to pick it out, right? But most of the time, Austin and I are going to each pick two things, and you'll get to pick from those four and in a poll. And this time, one of mine won out, and I went ahead and picked Jurassic Park just because Jurassic House 2 is out this week. I haven't had a chance, by the way, to go see the new Jurassic World movie, Jurassic World Dominion. I'm calling it Jurassic House 2 until I see it, and it's not crazy enough to warrant that title. But if it is, I will continue referring to it that way, regardless of whether or not there is a house, because House of the Dead 2 has nothing to do with the house. So there's precedent. It's fine.
Does it at least have dead people in it?
It does.
That would be really awkward.
Well, only sort of, because... because the whole thing is like genetic engineering. So I guess the bad guy is a Goldman. I guess he's genetically engineering dead people, but it's not like they're dead and they came back to life, like the normal mystical way. Like, yeah, they are dead, but it's genetic engineering.
I'm sure it at least has of the in the game, so like the entire title is.
There's some of those, yeah. But anyway, I digress. Suddenly I'm talking about House of the Dead. I promise, just like the title suggests, there will be Jurassic Park in our Jurassic Park watch party or Jurassic Park commentary. Welcome, folks. Thanks a lot for watching live. If you're doing that, thanks for hanging out with us and watching after the fact and watching the movie along with us if you're doing that. This movie right now is available on HBO Max if you want to stream it and you don't have a copy. Yeah, the trilogy. Say that again?
I guess there's probably I said it's not on Peacock. It's on HBO Max.
It might be on multiple services, but Max is where I found it most
probably
readily.
Some sort of licensing deal before they put up their own service, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and of course there's a whole lot of that. So you might see in the next year or two it moves over to Peacock, and yeah. Who knows?
Exactly.
I didn't think of that. And the World movies aren't there, curiously. I don't know where those are streaming. If they might not be streaming anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. But I guess that makes sense. We did a Predator and Alien watch party on the Discord at one point, and those were all on HBO Max for you guys, but Disney Plus here.
Oh, right. Raymond Nightmare says there is a house in Jurassic House 2. Don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. I want to know about the house. I want to be excited that there's a house. No, and he says what the house is, but I'm not going to mention it on camera. Anyway, Jurassic Park, of course.
T-Rex in there.
So I was going to say Jurassic Park is a movie, of course, that I love and that I have kind of a weird affinity for and obsession with, and didn't realize that I was as much of a mega fan of this as... I don't even know if I want to say mega fan, because I don't feel like I know it as well as I ought to, but I watch it a lot, and a few years ago I was really immersed in the fandom for Jurassic Park for some reason. I think I've kind of gotten rusty and dropped out of that just because of other things I've been doing the last few years. I would have loved to have had a chance to go back to the novel again before we watch this tonight so that I could do a little bit of comparison contrast. It's been too long since I've read that, so I'm probably not going to do a lot of that just because I know I'm going to get details wrong and there's going to be things that I don't remember. But maybe I'll get around to reading that again before we do any more of these. The reason we went to Jurassic Park and didn't go ahead and do Jurassic House with the new movie coming out is because Austin has not watched this movie with me before and kind of wanted to go through them because he doesn't know these movies super well past the first one. And so I don't know how often we're going to do these. I'll probably keep putting them in the poll, maybe not every time, but...
Yeah, but like every now and then.
Every now and again. So hopefully it won't take as long getting through them as we have like Terminator, because we'll get back to that eventually.
That's on the list.
But in case you're wondering why this again, you've already got a commentary on the channel about this movie. That's all Austin. He was like, I'd really like to do the other movies and not just Jurassic House, so that's why we're doing this. Oliver Harper did the first movie with me years ago, and go back and listen to that commentary if you're a big fan of Jurassic Park and you want to hear a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff about that, because Oliver Harper is a wonderful documentarian, and he's done videos on all of these, and or at least through Jurassic Park 3, I don't know if he's done World, but he is really knowledgeable and was a joy to talk to about that. And he and I had planned on going through these, so when we get to The Lost World, I will invite him to join Austin and I, and hopefully he'll be able to make it. He's in a different time zone than we are. He's in the UK, but 10 o'clock our time actually should be an easier time for him to do it. So, but now that we do these live, I imagine it will be more difficult to get schedules lined up with folks. I haven't talked to him about it yet, so I don't know if he'll be able to do that. But a couple of years ago, we were still talking about it, so I will at least extend the invitation. I just wanted to mention that in case anybody's like, where's Oliver? Why? Well, I've done one with him on this already, and I will definitely invite him to the subsequent ones.
Well, and I did suggest skipping the first one, but you were like,
"Oh, you did? I thought you were the one that's well, whatever. I'm blaming you for this, and it might not be."
Under the bus, but I did say, "Oh, we can do the sequels," and you were like, "At that point, we might as well just do all of them." I was like, "That's fine. The first one's the only good one."
It'll be fun nevertheless. Why the heck not? It's been a lot of years, and I'm always up for some Jurassic Park. So anyway, let's go ahead and do this. Get it at timestamp 0 past all the menus. Get ready to press play when I say now. I've got a timer up for us this time, and I'm going to do my best to sync this up as well as I can, but it won't be perfect, of course, because I'm the only one here, and I've got one mouse to click both things. But it'll be close enough, and that way, if folks come in late, they'll see a timestamp. And people have asked me to do this forever, and I finally fought to set it up, and if this goes well, I'll keep doing it this way. So anyway, is everybody ready? I kind of intentionally had a long preamble so that you could ask the question, is there going to be any Jurassic Park in your Jurassic Park commentary?
Well, I was going to ask you why we're doing it with lights on.
With lights on?
Yeah, because Jurassic Park is frightening in the dark.
We just got to get all the references in before we're even watching the movie. You know, one of us should have, like, a cup right now with water in it and just, like, flip it from the bottom so that, like, subtly, you know,
with an elastic
moves out, and then you hear, like, you know, rumbling.
One of us has to do the
Dilophosaurus
thing. My youngest brother, when he was, like, 4, he was obsessed with Jurassic Park. Like, he watched like all the movies constantly, and I'd be like, "Hey, Connor, what's your favorite dinosaur?" And you just go like this.
I always forget what those are called.
Yeah, it's the Dilophosaurus. I only know
there
that
you
because
go.
of him.
I always have to look it up. It's like, it's the ones that spit and have the flaps on the sides. Yeah.
Which they didn't in real life, but it gave it a different look.
Who cares? Jurassic World will give us a wonderful explanation for why. It's fine.
Yeah, no,
people are asking where Jason is, and or maybe it's just Philip Kelton, I'm not sure. It's late. Jason needs to go to bed. We got things going on tomorrow. But he said if Jason was here, I could have him press the button. But even that wouldn't work, not to get to Inside Baseball or whatever. But, like, I have everything running on the same machine. So, like, I still have to...
the one mouse.
Yeah, I got the one mouse. I mean, I still have to click the movie and the timer. There's, you know, there's no way around it. Unless I had, like, a separate Blu-ray player. I didn't do it like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it, folks. Here we go. Make sure that you're at timestamp 0, as I said, and get ready to press play. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
Letters of silver and gold fly across the globe.
People still don't know what you're talking about with that.
Well, they're not even really silver and gold. They're just gold. Oh, and it's not.
Well, they're gold here, but I think they were silver and gold in that in that other commentary or that other movie.
Mm-hmm. There's not silver and gold here. They're just gold.
So, Austin, how old were you when you first saw Jurassic Park?
I don't know. Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3 were big go-tos for me as a kid, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe 3 more than 1.
Weird.
Not necessarily like.
It certainly doesn't take as long to watch.
Not necessarily like, oh, I want to watch this, but like, oh, hey, Austin wants to watch a movie. Why don't you throw in this one?
Or where your parents would go, I think he likes that, and then just throw it on.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, as a kid, I was a really big Predator fan, and it was like, oh, Austin loves Predator. Put Predator 2 on for him. So I watched that one a lot more than the first one.
I was not allowed to see this in the theater. My mom thought it looked too scary, even though it was PG-13. I was 9 when this came out, and I've let all my kids see this at least a couple years before they were 9. I mean, some of that is just your kids living in the world we live in now are going to naturally be a little bit more desensitized, probably, than I was with just kind of the regular kind of, for kid entertainment that they get now. But also some of it was to, like, spite my mom because she wouldn't let me see this when I was a kid, so. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I've never really had the thought of, like, oh, this isn't appropriate for children. Like, it's Jurassic Park, it's a family movie.
Well, I probably wouldn't have, except I wasn't allowed to see it. And then when I finally did, I was like, I mean, yeah, it's got kind of scary parts, but it's not like I'm freaked out and I can't get through it. But my siblings were scared of it.
Mm-hmm. No, but when you think about it, like, this is a horror movie. Like, it's more fun for the family horror, but it is a horror thing.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's a thriller before it's
horror list.
Yeah, it's definitely, if you want to split hairs, a thriller before it's horror, but there's a monster and it's attacking, and it's a survival film. It's about the chase.
Yeah, you've got those kind of sensibilities.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, kids' first horror movie type movies,
And with respect to Steven Spielberg and the writers of this movie, it certainly is that way in the book also. Like, some people will kind of dog on the movie for being too much of kind of a monster picture, and being too much about the chase before it's about the and the gore and the violence and stuff before it's about the science and the ideas. But it's kind of just a matter of page count and how many pages in the book are devoted to the science and how this is all ostensibly supposed to work. And the moral of the story and all of that. Like, yes, Ian Malcolm goes on for pages and pages and pages with diatribes preaching about not playing God. It's a 2-hour movie. A lot of that was cut down, certainly, for the better, really, as a viewing experience. But the book is still about the monsters attack us, and are we going to be able to survive? And a lot of people die, and a lot more people die, and it's because it's a cautionary morality story. Like,
well, I always got the sense the book is more a horror book than the movie is, like, because the movie adds that kind of Spielbergian family stuff, while the book is a lot more like R-rated about stuff. But it's horror,
and it tries to make
like
the characters. It tries to make some of the characters more endearing, also.
Well, that too. But it's got that kind of like Frankenstein, like horror type thing, where it's a science fiction horror.
Yep, absolutely. Which was certainly the right way to take it. A thing like this really can't be translated straight, but also nobody would have wanted it to have been like. I think Crichton's book sold really well, but like the mainstream masses didn't know about that. Like this was Jurassic Park. It wasn't like we took this decades old or centuries old beloved book and adapted it. It was Spielberg looking for material to adapt. The difference being what's a, I don't want to say like raw material, but what's a thing that I can take and turn into my kind of movie, as opposed to what can I find that I should make exactly like it was on the page.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why it makes sense for him to do things like Ready Player One and stuff like that, where even if, the material itself doesn't seem ripe for turning into a movie, Spielberg can find a way to get that into his formula. Because keep in mind, the book, remarkably, only comes out 3 years before this movie comes out.
Yeah, I knew they were pretty close together.
It's 90 and 93.
Well, I think, doesn't Jaws have that too?
Does it?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the history of Jaws, and that's a movie that I didn't see until way late in my life, and I've only seen it once, but it's wonderful. I'm glad I finally did. And the one time I got to see Jaws, I got to see it at a theater, so that was awesome.
That's awesome. That's being re-released this year. I really want to.
I will totally go again if I can. Yeah.
Yeah, Jaws is a wonderful movie. The book is also really good, from what I remember.
So, of course, I should read that. We talked over Shoot Her. Do you find this to be one of the most quotable movies? Is this in that Ghostbusters kind of place? Because I think it is. And not just because people quote it all the time, but I found myself quoting it a lot before I started hearing a lot of other people doing it.
It probably is overall. This isn't a movie that I quote a lot, I don't think. But in terms of pop culture, definitely.
I go to Chaos a lot. I go to you are gonna have Jurassic Park, and you're gonna have dinosaurs, and your dinosaur. Like I do that a lot.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
There's a number of things, and Shoot Her. It comes up more now because my kids say it all the time. It's really funny. Jason started doing that a couple years ago, and it stuck. Shoot her. Philip Kelton, but this movie had a toy line. It did, because in the early 90s, there were a lot of things that weren't especially kid-friendly that we merchandised like they were family movies, and this was easier to get away with that, certainly, because, again, it is a PG-13 movie, and to Austin's point, it does have some kind of family tropes baked into it. But I would say that it's certainly somewhere in between, like a Star Wars and Terminator, as far as being a family affair.
Well, it fits into that Terminator 2 slot, right? And that is R-rated, but Terminator 2 is a movie that people show their kids because it is like a kid's movie that's R-rated.
It's weird.
It's really weird.
Well, the main character is a kid who is kind of a relatable kid when you're that age.
Yeah, no, and that's like the perfect R-rated movie to watch as a child. Like, you watch it, it doesn't feel super graphic or anything like that, and it feels like you're watching a movie like this. Like, it kind of rides that line.
Yeah, and it maybe challenges kids a little bit. I don't mean intellectually, well, maybe a little bit, but it's the kind of thing where you hope it won't give them nightmares. You hope that it makes them, think about the ideas of the movie and to appreciate, whether or not you like the ultimate message of Jurassic Park, just the idea that we're kind of a blink of an eye in the grand scale of the universe, and if we think of ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, but if you went up against the T-Rex, you would lose. It's sort of like, and again, this is also not for kids, but it's sort of like The Matrix, where if you were a kid and you appreciated some of the ideas of this movie, it might kind of blow your mind a little bit, where it's like, if dinosaurs did come back, it would be cool for a minute, but then that's also really terrifying, right? Like, what are the grander implications of that happening?
Well, The Matrix is a movie I think of as being like a family movie. Is that R-rated?
It is.
Really?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of language in that movie, and
yeah, I guess so.
Some places
I would
where
think of it as like the '90s like family movie.
And by the way, everything we're bringing up is stuff that I showed my kid when he was like my oldest kid when he was 8 or 9. Terminator 2, Matrix, even RoboCop. I let him watch it like 9 or 10.
I think I saw RoboCop when I was like 13, and I wish I saw it when I was younger. That movie's awesome. So, your like favorite actor in this is Goldblum, right?
Yes, but followed very closely by is it Edinburgh, the guy playing John Hammond,
Oh,
who
okay.
is just spectacular, and I think really sells this movie.
No, he's awesome. I mentioned that because mine's Sam Neill, like by far, and I just thought that was interesting because I know we've talked about it with the sequels, where with 2 you're like, well, at least they brought Goldblum back, and I'm like, but I like 3 because they brought Sam Neill back.
Yeah. Well, and I think Neil
awesome.
makes more sense to be like an action hero if he's going to be the one guy that comes back and is leading a team or some some family that lost their kid for a stupid reason in an island filled with dinosaurs. Sam Neill would be the guy that you would want, and I'm not saying that what doesn't work about Lost World should be really put at the feet of Jeff Goldblum, but like if I were gonna pick one of those guys to bring back, even though I love Goldblum, he seems like a supporting character, right? Like having him as the main guy seems like a little bit of a tall order, maybe. Like
It's kind of like the Pirates movies where, Johnny Depp, like Jack Sparrow, works as a supporting character, but once
if he
once
takes
you make him
over,
the main character, it's like okay, he doesn't work as well anymore.
yeah, but like Grant and Malcolm as a duo, if that had been the sequel, that sounds awesome.
It's kind of crazy.
Get rid of everybody else and just have those guys.
It is a bit crazy that we didn't bring the 2 of them back together.
Now I wish that's what the new one was.
Yeah.
Like I wish they got rid of all the Jurassic World cast. They get eaten in the first 10 minutes of this third Jurassic World movie. And then it's just Grant and Malcolm like, well, we got to clean up these idiots' mess.
They got gigantic guns and they're running around shooting dinosaurs.
I think it would be so funny if that's what happened in that movie.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I wish Sam Neill had a better career than he did. Because Sam Neill's awesome in like everything that he's in.
Well, and you might have thought he would be more of an A-list actor after this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You might have thought of that about all of this cast. If you think about it, nobody from this is a huge actor after this. Nobody has that Harrison Ford career.
No, that is true. Goldblum's probably the closest, but even he drops off at a certain point.
Yeah, but like I never saw him as like a big A-list actor. Like he got work, but he continued to do mostly
when he was mainly supporting roles,
character
like
stuff.
too.
Yeah, character actor stuff.
But like and Sam Neill moves on to be like a '90s Carpenter regular, so it's like all of his work for hire directing stuff. But he's good.
We got Dotson. That's another thing I quote constantly. We got Dotson. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. I remember as a kid, I just thought this scene was very confusing, and I was like, I don't know what's happening in this scene. Can we get to the island already?
I love Wayne Knight. That's another guy who was kind of big for a minute and then fell off the face of the planet. He's still around. He still works a little bit, I guess. I haven't seen him in anything in a million years. And like he was a major character on Third Rock from the Sun, and he shows up in Space Jam, and he's in all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Daniel Davis, of course. Samuel L. Jackson's the biggest breakthrough.
That's true. But
he's like so nothing in this.
That's what's so weird about it, right? Is that he's got one of the most minor roles in this movie, and I wasn't even thinking about him because he's not main cast.
Yeah, well, this is nobody's favorite Samuel L. Jackson performance. Like, that's just a fact.
See, I was going to say, I feel like there's some people that would fight you on that, but I don't think it's because it's actually... I think people will dupe themselves into thinking that it's their favorite performance. They just think about it too much because they love Sam Jackson in the first place, and he's got a couple of kind of memorable lines, and they want to imagine him coming back with a robot arm.
I did remember, though, the thing that I quote from this movie the most is the, that's not the magic word.
Yep. That's another thing I quote a lot. Yeah, Daniel Davis, I didn't realize that, and I don't know how I missed it, but he says that Wayne Knight is the voice of Penguin in the Harley Quinn show. I didn't know that.
I did know that,
and I've watched a lot of that show.
No, the cast they get for the second season's crazy. Like they get like Alfred Molina as Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. No, it's a ridiculous cast. Ha ha! Goblin's amazing. And this is kind of the movie that puts him on the map in the mainstream, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, before this, he's known mostly for The Fly.
Which is an awesome movie.
And I've still never seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, we should watch that one day. That's a great movie.
Do you remember when we did the commentary for Batman Ninja Turtles, and you had the Baxter Stockman voice actor? Baxter Stockman turns into a fly, so he's doing an impression of Jeff Goldblum, and it's spectacular.
Yeah. I'm putting that on the list, and you can't stop me. You have to watch that movie.
Oh, The Fly? No, I should do that. That might be fun as a blind commentary.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
You bring the rock star.
On the list.
You know, for years I said that, and this was before I got more into this, so it might just be because I've seen it too many times now, and sometimes when you become more of a fan of a thing, you find yourself giving it too much credit because of nostalgia or just, you know, your love for it. You kind of live in it too much. So maybe that's what I'm doing when I say this, but for years, I used to say that nobody comes to Jurassic Park for the characters in Jurassic Park. That they're mostly kind of one note and they're not super memorable, and it's not really about the people. It's more about the dinosaurs. And like you said, it is a horror film in that most of these people are here to kind of get picked off, and I don't think that was wholly fair. I think if you compare it to some other Spielberg movies. If you compare it to maybe even Jaws, but especially the Indiana Jones movies,
Jaws are great,
and stuff like that, I think it's true by comparison, but
well, I
don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I like Sam Neill the most in this movie, is because Indiana Jones is my favorite Spielberg thing. Because I'm not the biggest Spielberg fan in the world. Like, I like the stuff that I like by him, but I'm not a huge fan overall, I don't think. And Sam Neill's kind of like more in that line of like the Indiana Jones-y type character in this, and I think that's probably why I like him more.
That's fair, but I really like the eccentricity of Hammond. I like the changes that they make to him from the book. He's
like
really
Walt Disney in this.
He's really, yeah, and that was kind of the idea, modeling him after that, and I think that was kind of an inspired choice on Spielberg's part. But like in the book, he's actually kind of more one-dimensional because he's kind of there.
A businessman, right?
Yeah, and he's really typical in the kind of corporate CEO does whatever he has to make a buck. As the park is falling apart at the end of that movie, he's walking around just trying to make plans for how to do it again and try to make another one. He's learned nothing, and that's why he gets viciously eaten by dinosaurs immediately after he starts thinking about that. Like, and you want him to die. Like, the book makes him as unsympathetic as humanly possible, and I like that he is kind of somewhere more in the middle here, where, like, he's really naive, and I believe him when he says that he doesn't really care about the money, and it's, like, again, he's this really eccentric. He's played almost like a philanthropist in a way, because he just wants to, like, make children happy. It's like if Willy Wonka figured out how to make dinosaurs instead of chocolate, you know, and both, it turns out, are just as dangerous, except nobody was going to go to the chocolate factory until they were invited, right? And this was supposed to be a thing open to the public, and when it is finally open to the public in Jurassic World, we see that it works out exactly the way it does here. Like, people were going to die. But only because that's the formula. It wouldn't necessarily have to work out that way. There are, by the way, Austin, people who vehemently disagree with the moral of the Jurassic Park story and say that it's not necessarily hubris to try to do something like bringing back the dinosaurs if you did it in a more... I don't know, if you were more thoughtful about it. But like the whole point is that they don't do it responsibly, and that, you know,
see, the people that
Ian Malcolm is right that. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, the people that disagree with the moral, the people that cheer when like Tarkin shows up in Rogue One.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the
How
best
do you
line
feel
of the
about some of the
movie is.
CGI?
I think the best line of the movie is Malcolm's. They were so preoccupied by whether they could do something they didn't stop to think if they should, and that's just a very wise observation about the way people with power tend to operate.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, how do you feel about some of the CGI in this movie? And specifically this shot, I guess, because we're looking at it, but just overall. Because I think a lot of the CGI in this movie isn't great, and like a lot of the effects are made up by the fact that they mix practical and CGI. It is like a 25-year-old movie at this point, so it's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, and I've heard you say that before, and some of it I don't agree with, and I think maybe part of the problem is just that I grew up with this movie and I've continued to watch it. It's sort of like people that can't look at the graphics in the original Mario Kart. Like, I continued playing it for 25 years. I don't have that. And so there are things in this movie that people go, it doesn't hold up as well as it did back then, that doesn't jump at me. But the only thing that really does is, and I'm not saying that everything looks 100% like it's actually there. You know, there's bits like this with the brontosauruses and stuff where it's like, yeah, it kind of looks like a matte painting, but like it's farther away and everything looks very integrated and like it's not taking me out. Yeah, it looks really good. The raptors at the end is the bit that really takes you out because they're just not rendered enough, and it wasn't possible in '93 to quite render them enough. And to do some of the things that they're trying to do, you couldn't do it with practical animatronics.
It's kind of too ambitious.
There's no way. Yeah,
not like an awful thing to be. I think for me, it's like that last brontosaurus shot, the raptors, like you were saying, and that part where they're hiding under the log. The dinosaurs are like running over them. I think some of that looks pretty rough too.
But would you not agree that there are? I'm sorry, which part? Because I was reading comments and I
when they're hiding under the log and you have the dinosaurs running over them.
Okay, I'll watch for that.
That whole scene, and then like when the T-Rex comes in and eats one of them. I've never I hit a certain point. I think probably around high school where I was like, this doesn't really look as good anymore. But it's kind of to be expected. This movie looks as good as it does in places because it's a mix and it's not entirely CGI.
I think this movie has one of the best climaxes of all time. One of the best like last shots to take with you in the climax with the banner that comes down, and I really like the way it's established there, where you don't even realize that it's setting up a thing that's going to pay off later. We really hold on when dinosaurs will rule the earth, and when it drops at the end, I don't think consciously the first time you see this, you're even realizing you've seen it before, but it doesn't come out of nowhere. Like, I think you have to have that shot, and you don't even realize it, and it's wonderful.
So, I wasn't sure if this was going to come up earlier or when we got there.
Yeah.
But have I ever told you about my thing with that shot?
No! Are you gonna ruin it for me somehow?
No, you're gonna laugh at me for being stupid.
Oh, and then can we complain after that about how this doesn't make any sense? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, this is very strange. I gaslit myself into believing that the T-Rex, when it roars, the American flag is the thing that drops down behind it. And for years, I went around talking about wasn't it weird in that part in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex roars the American flag behind it? That's really bizarre. And people would
especially since they're in Costa Rica.
Yeah, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, that is weird, Austin. I guess And probably for like 5 years at least, I legitimately thought that was the thing that happened.
We all have that with stuff with movies, right? Where like you saw it early and your mind filled in something, and like for some reason you remember it really, really vividly, and then you keep telling people about it, and then you finally look at it. I never had anything quite that dramatic though.
I can still see it in my head when I think about that shot, but that's not what happens. I was like, man, you Americans, that is like the most American shot I've ever seen.
Thomas Lowe, yeah, that would have been really unfortunate, honestly. Thomas Lowe put in a $6 super chat and says, "Hey Cap, you know what? You're alive, like me."
At least you're not dead, I guess.
I don't think I'm a clone, though. I gotta tell you, and folks that have seen the new movie, please don't spoil anything, but I need the little girl from the last movie, spoiler alert, who turns out to be a clone. I need her to be part dinosaur. That has to happen. I know it won't, but I need it.
See, I think I'm a clone. All my pair of genes are hand-me-downs. This is pretty
Were
fun
you born in a
exposition,
petri dish
getting
late
it out.
at night?
Yeah.
Without a mother or a father? Just a test tube in a womb with a view?
womb with a view?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate.
This is some real
But at least
state
I
of the
can
art.
kill myself for pizza.
That's some real state of the art DNA strands on that computer there.
Oh yeah. Oh, we got some VR. It's the 90s.
Hey Austin, tell everybody what you want to see happen with Mr. DNA at some point.
Oh yeah, this came up on After Dark yesterday. I want Mr. DNA to just be a character that hangs out with the characters in the movie, and then he can sacrifice himself at the end to kill all the dinosaurs, like Iron Man.
How does that even work? Is he a cartoon character like it's Roger Rabbit, or was he somehow brought to life with the genetic engineering and is just like a blown up DNA strand?
No, he'd
somehow.
be like a little cartoon character that like bobs around and he's like, "Look at all these dinosaurs. They're gonna eat us."
So, I know I had to have talked about this in the other commentary that I did, but I want to mention it again because it's just my favorite thing to talk about, or one of my favorite things to talk about with this movie, nitpick-wise. I don't, and maybe this is even larger than just a nitpick, but it's just such a silly thing. It's a criticism I always have to bring up. But
they could just get off the ride and walk into the lab.
Well, there's that. I mean, that's better than Jurassic World, where they actually let the patrons drive around in their own gyrospheres.
Yeah, because every kid would just ram into children, or not into children, into dinosaurs.
Why couldn't it at least have been a code that you could put in that they somehow were able to override or something, like the people that run the park? Anyway, so there's Wu. And he's insanely young because I've now seen him in more things more recently, and it's really weird to go back to this movie now and see that he just looks like a friggin' child in this movie.
Yeah, and he's only in this one scene, and now he's like a big part of the
franchise. Now he's a major character, and it's also ironic because in the book he dies, and he's one of and he's one of the only characters they've kept around. I guess a lot of these characters, the main characters, are still alive, but.
Well, and Goldblum has that, like, he dies in the book. The lawyer doesn't die in the book. I know. I guess
that's what I'm saying is that, like, of the characters that are supposed to be dead, they kept him around.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I wanted
about the lawyer thing for why they killed him off.
Say again.
Do you know about like the reason why they killed off the lawyer in this movie?
I forget.
It has something to do with, I think Spielberg had like a bad divorce or something, and he was like, "I hate lawyers," so he killed him off.
Oh, that's crazy.
That was what I heard.
Well, he also makes him kind of intentionally one note, not especially sympathetic. Like, he's kind of a fun character in how slimy he is. Mm-hmm. But he's supposed to be that character that, like, everybody else is a is like a somewhat well-rounded, like sympathetic, caring person to some degree, and so they all get to make it out. But then, I guess Sam Jackson didn't really do anything to anybody, so it's not like everybody that dies deserves to die. But it does, by and large, read like a cautionary horror thing, where we're killing off characters that kind of deserve it. Not everybody. But of course, obviously, Nedry has that.
Yeah. That's the weirdest part when you get to Jurassic World, where you have the one nanny that gets, like, the most horrifying death for no reason.
Yeah, what did she do?
It's like, yeah. It's like she stepped on a baby or something. Like, that's what she gets for it. But
that is just
it's just like a nice nanny.
It's a compassionless god is what it is. But anyway, The thing I wanted to talk about, though, is it's very bizarre that Hammond says that he always has to be there when they're born. Because he's not on that island all the time. And he didn't know one was going to be born just now and just happens to be there. And maybe he's being hyperbolic. Again, he's extremely eccentric. Maybe he just says stuff like that because he's excited to have a crowd and he likes to look kind of larger than life. But it's a weird thing to say. And then the other thing is, why would they have that introductory video thing before Mr. DNA set up so that Hammond always has to be there to talk to himself? Because he's not going to always be on that island. It's like, his job from now on is to stand in that room. Like, was that just for their benefit? Or is that, like, a video that they've set up for the park when it opens?
Well, I assume it's just for the park when it opens.
That makes it way worse. Like, it has to just be for them, or it's really stupid.
Yeah, no, I always thought that was just for the park, but...
Philip Kelton says Hammond is a terrible parent. They imprint on him, and then he goes away. That's a good point.
Yeah?
We make a big deal out of the imprinting thing in the World movies before we do here.
Oh, do we? I've only seen the first one once, and I haven't seen the second.
And that's an idea I like a lot in that movie, but the idea that if you have like an actual relationship with the raptors, they treat you differently. Like they're still animals and they're still vicious, of course. But there was they made a big deal out of the difference between the way the Indominus Rex is raised versus the way the raptors are.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Where
from the
all they have is like a
like
machine that gives it food, and so it's a little silly. They kind of play it like you can train the dinosaurs to have empathy, which is a little silly. But I see thematically what they were getting at, like.
Yeah, because that was one of those things in the trailer where it was like, oh, he's riding alongside raptors? That's really stupid. And it's a little bit better in the movie.
Yeah, I think so, too. Well, it's it's one of those many things where, and I don't want to just talk about that movie since we're doing this, but it's one of the many difficulties in trying to give this legs as a franchise. We're like, where else do you go with it after the park didn't pan out? Because the concept that I always thought was cool about it is we don't just bring dinosaurs back to life, we try to make a Disneyland type theme park out of it. And I kind of lose interest after you don't have the park idea anymore. And so and I think Spielberg realized that with Lost World, that a lot of people would probably feel that way. And so the park idea is still there because the bad guys that are still keeping InGen limping along, want to try to make another park, and they're not going to take any of the lessons from what happened in the first movie, and they think they can still control it. And then you get Jurassic Park 3, and we throw that completely out the window, because you can't just keep repeating yourself. And so what do you do after that? And so, and then with Jurassic World, it's like we got a working park, but what do you do but kind of soft reboot and do the same movie again, at least by the end? And then where do you go from there? So the idea that you would have that you would try to make the raptors like more like working alongside humans just to give us something else to do with it, I think. And because everybody loves the raptors, right? So they got to be characters now.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that the Jurassic World ends in like a Transformers fight with the raptor and the T-Rex teaming up to fight the big evil one. It's ridiculous when they give each other like the knowing nod and then walk away at the end. Oh man. Well, one of the most ridiculous.
Well, see, it's because the Indominus Rex is making both of their species look bad.
Oh, okay.
Because it's both of them. Yeah. It's a T-Rex and a raptor. So the T-Rex and the raptor team up. I don't think they would even instinctually appreciate that. But
no, I also don't think they'd look at each other afterwards and go, and walk away. But one of the weirdest ideas with that is that it's the same T-Rex from this movie.
I always thought they left it sort of ambiguous as to whether or not it was supposed to be the same T-Rex.
It is supposed to be the same one.
Is it? I always wondered, honestly.
Yeah, it's got the scars that it gets at the end of this movie, and that was like a big thing they talked about. Because that thing would be put down instantly.
So obviously this is the most important scene in the movie as far as the ideas of the film and thematically, and it's really well written. And I think as far as the human scenes, this is the best scene of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got that old school monster thing of we're building to it. Like we're not, we're not. I mean, we still have probably like 20 minutes before we get to one of the big dinosaur set pieces, and it's not boring. Like you're just along for the ride.
Well, and also the way, and I never really thought about this, but I guess I should have, Austin. Now that you say that, it's a lot like Godzilla 54. In that way, where not just building to the monster, but also, and I mean specifically that movie, because the human scenes are about how humanity has screwed up and made this happen.
Yeah, well, it's more like that, because obviously Jaws is that too, and Jaws is the big go-to that people have for that, but it isn't Godzilla, you're right. And
yeah, it all starts there.
And it's more like that here, because we have scientists talking, as opposed to Jaws, where it's just, like fishermen and like a cop. You get one scientist, but you know what I mean? Like, it's more about the science in this movie than Jaws is.
Well, I think the dinosaurs kind of serve as the same sort of metaphor that Godzilla does.
Yeah, exactly, which Jaws doesn't really have in that same way.
Or a similar metaphor. It's interesting because Godzilla is about war and, like, humanity almost destroying itself over being petty and not being able to get along and trying to kill each other. And so we have nuclear testing, and then we create this monster that comes to kill us. That's a metaphor for the way we almost destroyed ourselves in World War II and Cold War after that. It serves to be about that later if you watch it a couple decades after the fact. And then this movie is the same thing with environment and with corporatism.
Yeah.
So it's not we destroy ourselves in the name of war. We destroy ourselves in the name of money. Sometimes those things go together, of course, but... Okay, how do you feel about the kids in this movie? Because some people find both of them irritating, and some people like one over the other, and I've always been kind of fine with how much they're used in the movie and the performances, but where do you land on it?
I've never really thought about it, but I guess indifferent.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some silly stuff with the kids, but that's the Spielberg element of this movie. They get the best set piece of the movie, which is being trapped in the Jeep with the T-Rex.
They get the second best set piece in the movie.
See, you're a Raptor guy, I'm the T-Rex guy.
Yep. And I don't care about the CG I was complaining about earlier, by the way.
See, as a kid, it was always like, oh man, the T-Rex is the best part. And then as I got older, people were like, the Raptors. And I was like, really?
So, if I could break this down percentage-wise, and I'm terrible at math, but I would say that, 50% of the success of this movie, of it working as a movie, but also of the massive commercial success, of course, of this movie, is the fact that we believed the dinosaurs were real, right? And then I think 20 to 30% of the success of it is the soundtrack. And then I think the rest of it is...
And that's a John Williams thing. That's most of the movies he did.
Yeah, and then I think, well, yeah, I mean, he saved Home Alone. but I think the rest of it is that extra 20-30% I think is set design and iconography.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing performances under the bus, which is not fair. Because, again, I think especially Hammond and Ian Malcolm are great and very memorable, and everybody does a good job. But I really think that the characters could kind of be nothing and lifeless, and the movie would have still done the money it did, based on everything else I just said.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it's that Spielberg blockbuster thing, right? Where it's not especially, like, brilliant, but it's more than, like, your typical summer blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
Which just kind of what it needs to be.
Well, maybe my standards are lower or too low. I almost said after this. I mean, I was 9 when this came out, but I think my standards are lower than maybe they ought to be for movies like this, because I grew up in the age of the blockbuster, and this was one of the smarter and more believable and more thought-provoking of the blockbusters, which is maybe kind of unfortunate, because yes, at the end of the day, like Plushy DX in the comments there says a lot of it's just dinosaurs. Like, at the end of the day, yeah, that's true. And I think I agree with Roger Ebert when he says that there could have been more wonder in the movie about the fact that dinosaurs have come back from the dead, and we thought that was impossible, and how insane is this? When I was growing up watching this, I felt like that was sufficient. But I see what he's talking about. Like, if it's not a blockbuster, if it's not about appeasing the popcorn audience and creating the spectacle and making you feel like you're going on a ride, and that, I mean, think about it. It's a theme park movie that wants to be a theme park movie. I mean, that's a lot of what works about it.
That's the Spielberg way.
But, like, there's an art house version of this movie that would be a more brilliant story, certainly,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of about what you're trying to achieve. I appreciate it that it's actually about something, and that it has it has a story to tell, and it has a message that's not shoved down your throat, too horribly hard. Like, I don't have the Avatar thing with this movie.
Yeah. Well, because that's the Spielberg way, right? You're just kind of like dumb summer blockbuster movie, but it's a little bit smarter than that, and it's not, like you said, an art house thing. Like, it's not the smartest movie ever made, but it's smarter than it could have been, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody else, and that's kind of the brilliance of Spielberg as a director. And then I think he eventually, hits the point that Lucas does, where he goes, "Oh, of all my peers, I was the one who made, like, the family, like, kids movies," and then he kind of tries to get outside of that.
Yeah. And when he finally decides to embrace it again, he makes a movie that makes a ton of money. Mm-hmm. With Ready Player One. Because that was the first movie of that ilk he had made in probably 2 decades.
I think, is BFG before that?
Did he make that?
He did make that.
Okay.
It's apparently awful.
I don't think I'm the only person that kind of stopped following his career after 2002.
He hits that certain point where I think he drops off, and I'm not a huge fan of modern Spielberg.
The end for me was War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds.
It's terrible. Yeah.
It's really bad. Even as a kid, I was like...
And there's a little girl in that who, like... I never want to shove a girl into a river when I'm watching a movie, but I had that with this. I haven't said this yet, but, like... I don't care that she was like 9 or whatever, and she's supposed to be this innocent little girl. She's a fictional character. Give this to me. I wanted to burn her at the stake. She was terrible.
Well, her first name is my middle name, so I'm not going to argue with you.
I don't even know what your... Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know what your middle name is. Wait, no, I don't, because you have a hyphenated last name. I don't know what your middle name is.
Well, she's Dakota Fanning, so it's Dakota.
Oh, I didn't know that. People can't say... You can't say Dakota without me thinking about that line delivery from X-23 in Logan. North Dakota.
No, I don't even remember that.
You remember that? She says it over and over again. It's great. I love her accent in that. It's great. So, I have this obsession with the Jurassic Park Explorer. to the point where I really want one, and I've looked into how to get a screen perfect or close to screen perfect Jurassic Park Explorer before, and someday I still really want to do it. I just haven't been able to make it a priority, and the main thing is, I don't know if I want to rely on a 25-plus-year-old vehicle that I'm driving around in. Like, it would have to be a show car that I didn't really use that much, and I don't know if I have the space to, like, just put a car in a garage and take it out 5 or 6 times a year, or take it to shows and stuff. But I really, really want one. And
that was me with my first car. When I was looking for a car, I think it was like 19. In my area, somebody was selling a 60s Oldsmobile, which is Sam Raimi's first car, which is it's in every single one of his movies.
Yeah,
it's the Uncle Ben car.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I want this so bad, but I can't justify buying a car that's like 40 years older than I am.
He makes a joke in the Spider-Man commentary about how he's trying to sell that car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really funny.
Bruce Campbell destroyed that car for
he was
Spider-Man 3. I don't know if you know that story. But
really? He was like, contact me if you'd like to buy this car. Or maybe it was a different car from the movie, but I think it was that. Mm-hmm. So this is, of course, one of my favorite scenes.
When they were doing the Uncle Ben flashback stuff in that movie, Sam Raimi was off. I guess it was like a B-unit director, and they were like, "Oh, we need to like rip this car apart in order to get the shots we want." And Bruce Campbell was like, "Yeah, do it."
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's in his autobiography.
So people quote the comedic lines from this movie a lot, but I don't know that people talk very much about how well the comic timing is in this film. Like, if you think about it wholly just as a comedy, it kind of works.
Yeah, there's not a good comedy in this.
Like the pacing of the gag in that last scene is wonderful. The thing that I'm always quoting, where Ian Malcolm says you are going to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, and that joke all by itself is really funny, and everybody in the audience is laughing. And then you have a little bit of time, because I think Spielberg is probably thinking, like, this is an amusing joke, maybe people are laughing. And then Hammond, just very subtly and very defeated, I really hate that man, and it just really sends it over the top. Like, it's so good. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the movie gets enough credit for that.
It's crazy to me that Laura Dern's only like 23 in this movie. I learned that the other day. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
40 something, and she's like 20.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
She looks a lot older than she actually is, I think.
I actually think so too. And not in like a super, I don't know.
Well, I don't mean that in a negative way.
In like a super unattractive way or whatever. I don't want to be superficial.
No, I don't mean that in a negative way either. I just mean she doesn't look like she's in her 20s. Like, she looks like you can buy her as like a being about Sam Neill's age.
Yeah, at least 32, 33, yeah.
They do now, because he looks way older than she does. But here, I don't think you can tell just offhand.
No, she's an actress I go back and forth on, I think partly just because of roles she's had that I don't like. So, like, I think she's a good actress, but she's been some characters I didn't like. And so it's hard for me to get excited when she shows up on screen and things where I'm like, okay, it's Laura Dern, I don't know if I'm going to like her in this.
Oh, sorry, she was 25, chat saying. I knew it was like somewhere around there.
That's still
crazy, yeah. I was off by 2. It's all good.
Some of it's a bone structure thing.
Mm-hmm. She's got those like 90s shorts.
Yeah.
She looks like
but something about her, she
Tomb Raider.
She just kind of looks like she's, I don't know, like been around and lived some life. You know what I mean? She doesn't feel like she just graduated high school or something. She doesn't have like the
like baby face.
Yeah, and she's, I don't know, there's no like vacant expression or like she's too wide-eyed, and because you could have cast a young woman in a role like that where she's just so excited there's dinosaurs. It's probably good that we didn't do it like that.
Or it could have been like the Jessica Alba thing, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
Mm.
Yeah, where you never buy that she's supposed to be a paleontologist. Like, that's one thing you really have to give this movie, is I buy that everyone in this is doing the job they do. Would you say I think everybody.
Goldblum's maybe more eccentric than you'd get from a person in real life, but he works in his role.
Well, no, but that kind of works because he's thought of as a crackpot scientist. I mean, he's got the Peter Venkman thing.
That is true. They do talk about him as
before anything, yeah. Where like he's developing his crazy theories about chaos and they're not crazy, of course, but it's played a little bit like that, right? And then he has no reputation when you get to the second movie because he was dumb enough to talk about the island.
Yeah, when I like that he does have that Venkman thing where he's teaching her about the chaos theory, but it's clearly he's just hitting on her.
Oh, Fidelio says she went through 2 David Lynch movies, and he says that experience ages you.
I think she's one of his regulars. I think, or maybe she's just.
I didn't realize that.
Connor's mentioned it before.
Philip Kelton, because this was when Hollywood actually did movies. I agree with that.
Wayne, this is the stuff that looks, fantastic in this movie. That is just a real thing that they had there. That's the big thing that World is missing. Because don't they also do a sick dinosaur like this? And it's. I think they also use a practical effect, but they CGI'd over it.
Yeah. The second one has a sick T-Rex that I seem to recall looking pretty good up close. But you do up close raptors. In the second movie, and that works to various degrees of success. I mean, you're right. Like, and what I was going to say earlier when we were debating how well the CG holds up, is it's really hard for me not to compare it to the later movies with the World films, where the CG has gotten really good, but the problem is I'm comparing it to practical physical things that were there. And so even though the CG looks really good, I'm still taken out because I'm going, I know how that's done. Like, I know that's in a computer. And with this movie, I just don't have that most of the time. Where, like, I have to keep reminding myself, oh yeah, that's right. That's a animatronic and not a dinosaur that's really there. Like, I'm not an idiot. I know it's not a real dinosaur, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, too, besides, like, that kind of aspect, a lot of it is, it's not the same type of movie anymore. Like,
to some degree.
What it is. This movie would not have the shot that World has, where like the Indominus Rex is running.
That wouldn't happen, but that might happen in the next one. They might be crazy enough to have the Indominus Rex driving a car.
Where it's running and there's like the giant explosion happening behind it, with the helicopter, or with the T-Rex and the Indominus Rex like slam into buildings and they like go flying everywhere, and it becomes Transformers.
Well, this franchise itself missed the point of what Malcolm was talking about in the dinner scene. Mm-hmm. Just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should do that thing.
Exactly.
Like, that's CG.
Park? That's Colin Trevorrow.
And those are kind of guilty pleasure movies for me. I think World is, well, and of course, I mean, House is terrible, and I love it for why it's terrible. But Jurassic World, I give more credit than a lot of people do. I think that's a better script than it has any right to be, and I think that it was kind of, and maybe people don't agree with this, I think it was actually kind of gutsy of them to try doing a full-on working park. Because I didn't think we'd ever see that, and it's maybe gutsy is not the right word, because I mean I do kind of wish that it could have somehow stayed open for a couple of movies. Like, it does sort of just go back into the formula, but I don't know, like, I guess it was just cool to me because they finally gave some of us what we always wanted to see with this franchise. It didn't seem possible you'd ever do that, and there was a lot of work put into what that actual working park looks like, and it's good. Yeah,
I think the working park thing is just kind of like an inherently like stupid idea. Like you have to make it like a B movie, and I think that movie does what it can with it because it has like a meta narrative to it that I think works on paper. I don't think that's an especially engaging movie watching it, but I only saw it once, so
Yeah. But we'll see what you think when we look at it again.
yeah, exactly. I might try to watch both 4 and 5 before I see the new one, since I've never seen 5.
I really think you need to see that movie before you before you go and see the new one.
Yeah. So I was in a pub the other day, and they had a.
I'm sorry, I have a question. I have to
Yeah,
ask you
go
a
ahead.
question. Ian Malcolm in this scene says he has 3 kids, and,
Why
and
does he
he's
only have one in the next?
he's always waiting. He's always looking for the next ex Mrs. Malcolm. Where are his other 2 kids in the
notice
next
the
movie?
fact
There's
that-
no talk about them at all.
Notice the fact he was drinking from a flask when he said it.
Yep.
You forgot.
Anyway, what were you saying?
I was gonna say I was in a pub the other day and they had like a TV playing and they played a trailer for the new one, and it looks like from that trailer they recreate the like upside down Jeep T-Rex bit, and that's unfortunate.
Oh.
Yeah, except we got Laura Dern in it this time.
You know, I'm gonna remain cautiously optimistic that it's at least a fun movie or the right kind of terrible.
Hopefully the latter. I've seen Jurassic Park sequels.
Nah, I'm with you. So this whole kind of corporate espionage conspiracy plot is in the book. That's taken straight from that.
Yeah, it's this is something I hear a lot of people complain about, that they don't think this movie needs this. And I'm not entirely sure where I fall on that. I don't know. Because I can kind of understand where people are coming from with that, but like, it's such a short plot. I don't really know if it's that big of a deal.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading comments. You mean that people complaining that just goes on too long with Nedry?
No, like the opposite. Like they just don't think it really needs to be here, and it just kind of shows up and then is gone. And it's kind of like an excuse for everything to fall apart.
Yeah, but how else would you do it, right? Like you do need an impetus for that, because you always have to think about the other side of the fence. Not to. That was not an intentional pun. Anyway, you do have to think about the other side of that, where wouldn't people complain if we came up with too easy of a reason that we didn't linger on at all for why suddenly the power goes out?
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
also, yeah, I couldn't disagree more with the idea that's unnecessary, because it's kind of thematically it's also important because it's proven Malcolm's point.
We also like it too because you got like the like spared no expense stuff, but he mistreats his employees, and that's part of what sets everything off.
Now that's a good point. Although I get the sense that you couldn't pay this guy enough.
Yeah, that is probably true too. And it gives us that's not the magic word. And you can't make this movie. That's 90% of why this movie works.
Oh, you think it's just you didn't say the magic word?
Yeah, in school when we had like computer labs, I would just sit at my computer saying that.
See, you do quote this movie.
No, I said that earlier. That's like the one big quote that I.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Movie. Yeah, it's the big main one. And
I always thought this
now,
was a great sight gag.
And now I do the.
But I love the sight gag where he picks up the sign and he's flipping the arrow around.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Dilophosaurus is an underrated dinosaur in this movie. It's
I don't know
cool.
that that's true. I think the Dilophosaurus is quite popular.
but it also never comes back, which is part
Oh,
of,
I
like,
see what you're
what I
saying. You mean
mean.
from the
Like
sake from the filmmaker's perspective, because that seems to be one of the big things that kids that grew up
that
with
is
this
like a
most
big, yeah.
remember. It's stuck with us because it's
No,
kind of
that
scary.
everybody remembers that, but
Yeah.
it didn't really come back. It's in the new one. It was in the trailer, because they have that same shot where like it does the
Oh,
frills.
is it? But see, we're
Yeah,
bringing back the cast for the first movie, so we got to bring back all the first movie stuff. So it'll
yeah.
also focus more on those dinosaurs, which is weird because I guess we do this a lot with movie franchises that we bring back, soft reboot, and then keep going as a franchise. But like you have that Jurassic World is kind of a soft reboot of this movie, and then of course now we're gonna have another soft reboot type movie of that movie. We're just gonna do that movie again. Hopefully it's
We're at
not
the
too much
best
that
set
way.
piece of the movie, Cap. You're on. This is the best set piece.
It's not though.
It absolutely is. I think this like block is the most perfect thing in this movie. Like every single frame is so perfect.
No, you're right. I think so. I don't want to split hairs or whatever. If we're talking about just like
I'll split some hairs. You want
if
to
we're
go
just
outside?
talking about the filmmaking of it and like camera placement and tension and all of that, you're probably right. But just as far as like atmosphere and just what I most appreciate in this movie, just totally subjectively, this is great. You're absolutely right. But one of my favorite things about this movie is set design, and I really, really like everything about the Welcome Center.
Oh no! Well, I'm not like trashing that. I just think that this is like the kind of the peak of this movie. Like this is perfection, and like that part is also great. But just everything about this, from the atmosphere to just the build up of it, the lawyer being shooken in the T-Rex's mouth, it's perfect.
Yeah, no, that's
The
totally
only thing
fair.
that's not perfect is that weird shot of Jeff Goldblum flying out burst through the bathroom. That shot's a little weird.
I'll also admit that I get really biased. This is a weird thing to talk about. I get a lot of bias from seeing things from trailers first. Like,
Yeah.
this is the scene this movie was sold on.
Oh, I bet.
And I think we might have gotten a couple of shots of things in the Welcome Center, but like that, I remember the first time I saw this movie, which I didn't get to see in the theater, like I said.
I'm sure the big money shot in the trailer was the glass coming down with the T-Rex on the kid.
It sure was, and the glass with the ripples is in the trailer, and you just go in like waiting for this, like this is the scene that you're there to see, and so I felt like it was topped just because I didn't know where it was going. What was that?
Well, and the animatronic for the T-Rex is probably the best effect in this movie. Like, it looks fantastic.
It looks fantastic, yeah.
And
that's,
they had a lot of issues with it in the rain because it was like jittery.
That's right, yeah.
But you can't tell. Like, it looks perfect.
And see, MCU, take note, because this is how you do comedy in a scene like this, where it's real subtle. When Goldblum says, "When you gotta go, you gotta go," like that's really funny. It gets a joke, or it gets a laugh from the audience. We don't linger on it. It just keeps moving, and it feels like characters making a joke in the moment to diffuse tension for themselves, not to entertain the audience. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, because how it would be done if this were the MCU is you'd get this shot where the T-Rex bursts through the fence, and then Jeff Goldblum would be like, "Oh no, I'm farting at Sam Neill. I'm so goofy." And then Sam Neill would be like, "You moron, you stop that." And then we'd get back to the scene.
And scene.
And scene. Both people that are in Ragnarok, too.
You also got to appreciate characters that come with a particular expertise, that actually use that expertise in the moment to, in order to make something happen, or to make sure that they stay alive. Now,
Yeah,
Sam Neill, as a paleontologist, seems to know about as much as you might if you took one semester in college on the subject, or if you, just like read through a textbook real quick. But I do appreciate that, like, he's the one that says, okay, the T-Rex is the T-Rex's vision is based on movement. He knows that because he's studied this. The lawyer has to get eaten because his expertise is not going to help at all. And get anybody through this, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to have any resourcefulness as a lawyer.
The sound design, I think, is also perfect with the T-Rex. That roar is so just... When you hear that, you know it's this movie. It's so perfect. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure it's a mix of different animals, but I don't know exactly what it is.
I think it's in the Godzilla ballpark, right? Is just like definitively, perfectly what that should sound like.
Yeah, and then it becomes weirder when you see things that aren't this franchise, and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound like a T-Rex.
Yeah. But you wouldn't want them to just rip this off. That's Jurassic Park's
right.
T-Rex. Like,
yeah.
That's what's so weird about this movie is
this is another good bit of humor in the scene is him wiping the
yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's great. But yeah, dinosaurs actually existed, and sometimes watching this movie, I have to kind of remind myself that they're not fantasy creatures, because it walks the line, and I think it does it really intelligently, where it turns its dinosaurs into fantastic creatures, which is really smart if you're going to do such a Hollywooded kind of thing with it, where it can kind of get away with anything it wants to, and Jurassic World gives you a more of a particular explanation for why, when they say, well, we spice all these different things together, and you know that with the tree frogs, but we take it even farther when we get to Jurassic World, where it's like, these were never real dinosaurs. It was always made to be a spectacle for families and children to come to a theme park. And so, in doing that, they're able to kind of walk a line between science fiction and fantasy. And it also retroactively lets them not feel too dated every time we learn new things about dinosaurs, like these had feathers, but they don't in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, no, exactly. Sorry, that shot of him flying up is so silly. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's great.
This was like the greatest thing ever as a kid, is the lawyer being shaken.
Well, I guess John Kelling does not agree with us that the children are okay, because he really wants them to get eaten in the scene.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I like I said, I'm indifferent. I'm whatever on them. They're not brilliant, but
I feel like they have to be here.
No, they absolutely do.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes the scene better.
Well, not just that, but
they're stupid, but
it makes it more tense because they're children. Yeah, but I also just think for the premise they have to be here. Like Hammond's got a great line at the beginning when it's like, yeah, it's his grandkids, but the reason he invited them is because he says they're the target demographic.
Yeah.
It's a theme park. You got to see how the kids would react, and it's so much more horrifying if you put yourself in their shoes, because they think they're coming to experience a theme park, and for the first time that anybody's ever gotten to. Like, how cool and exciting is that? Should be the safest place on the planet.
Yeah. And it's your family Spielberg movie. You need the kids, like, the kids can relate to. This, of course, everybody makes fun of this. This doesn't make any sense. That the T-Rex pit has a giant cliff. Because how did the T-Rex get over and get into it?
Also, what's the T-Rex even trying to accomplish at this point? Like, at some point, it does just become kind of a monster that's attacking for no reason. Because I would think that
it just becomes an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly. Because I would think that once they go over the edge, she'd get uninterested. She'd just leave, right? I got better things to do. I'm gonna go kill something larger that would fill my stomach better. I mean, think about it. That's barely a snack for a creature that large.
Mm-hmm. Well, it already ate a lawyer.
I never thought about the blocking in this scene, but all 4 of those guys were crowded around that computer like they knew there was a camera there that was filming them, and they all had to be in frame.
Oh, yeah. Fidelio, you are correct. The best Spielberg kid is Short Round. Anybody who disagrees with that is wrong.
And then we learned after Everything Everywhere All at Once that he's one of the greatest actors who's ever lived.
Yeah, now I'm mad that he's not going to be in Indiana Jones 5 because I just want the 2 of them together if we have to have old Harrison Ford.
I just want to go live in the alternate universe where that guy became an A-list actor. What would we have gotten from him? He's spectacular.
I just want a movie where he's Superman now.
Oh, I know. Well, and did you see the thing I sent in the Discord about that? That we have source material that they could do with that.
Yes. Yeah,
the new Superman of China.
Yeah,
like he's perfect for that. If you aged him up, because New Superman of China was like a teenage Superman, supposed to be like kind of like if Peter Parker was Superman to some degree. But I love that. Okay, there's a slide whistle in there, and it's silly, and I don't understand why they did that.
No, I don't know either. That's an MCU joke.
It's so crazy. Even MCU doesn't go there.
No, I know. I'm just joking, but it's very weird. It's kind of reminiscent, not as bad, but there's a James Bond movie. Oh, it's Man with the Golden Gun. You've seen it.
Oh, I know what you're about to talk about.
The slide whistle over the greatest car jump of all time, and it completely ruins it.
Yeah, and some of the best music in the movie too. Like it just absolutely destroys the score. It's amazing.
Well, and the worst part is that it's mixed into the score.
It's in the score.
Yeah.
I was wondering if the slide whistle was like intentionally, because it's weirdly kind of subtle. I mean, it's not, because we all noticed it, but like you'd think if it was supposed to be like we're laughing because he fell down, it would be kind of more in the foreground of the audio. It's almost like it's not supposed to be a jokey, but it's there because it's supposed to be an actual like believable sound effect for something that he slips on or something. I'm just not sure what it's there for.
They should have just gone all out and gave him the Wilhelm scream when he falls.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Have we ever had a Wilhelm scream out of the mouth of a character that had a lot of dialogue first?
Yes.
Does that happen?
The greatest Wilhelm of all time is in the extended edition of the second Hobbit movie, which gives it to a really important character.
Really?
Yep.
That's awesome!
Yeah, he's talking to Gandalf, and then he gets pulled away, and it's like, ah!
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's in the extended cut.
Wait, which movie did you say?
Of the second Hobbit.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it. I thought you said one of Lord of the Rings. I've not seen those.
No.
So.
No, it's in the Hobbit ones. It's the greatest Wilhelm of all time.
So I think very often comedy is impossible to define or to explain why we laugh at things, and I think horror is that way as well. Where, like, explain this to me. Why is it somehow creepier or freakier that the dinosaur warns you first? Like, it's somehow scarier because it does that first. It's like, it's like, but you've got time to move. Like, it's actually giving you a chance when it does that. And it's scarier.
That is one place out the Dilophosaurus that is where CGI should come in for a movie like this. I don't have an issue with this. This is just like a funny thing you notice when you've seen it a lot. But you can still see the strings on it. Like, that's the kind of thing you want for CGI for a newer movie, is for them to use props like this and then use CGI to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and it's really well integrated.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the most memorable parts, especially for kids. You know, they all do the.
So for 1993, Sam Neill is a pretty typical initially kind of character where he's kind of the standard guy who doesn't really appreciate children or technology, and it's handled because at first I find myself kind of rolling my eyes, and then the character arc is decent with it. Like it's handled in a way more mature way than you might think it would be with the setup.
It is kind of your basic character arc. It's not anything brilliant.
I don't think it is either, but he's way more likable than he should be with that setup, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, Sam Neill, I think...
And he elevates the material. Like, when he gives...
Say.
Well, yeah, when he gives the kids that look and he says or when he gives the kid that look and says that's not what I'm gonna do, and like he's already kind of become the protector, that stuff really works and kind of finally sells me on doing this with this character.
That's also a nice subtle thing, like subtle moment of characterization where, like, their parents left them or whatever, and you kind of have that with Sam Neill.
Yeah.
You know, it's very subtle. It's not in your face.
Not like Jurassic World, where just out of nowhere the parents are gonna get a divorce.
Oh no!
Okay, where did that come from?
Spend time with this nanny.
There was some time to discuss that, which would have been in the house before you go to the park.
Yeah, Judy Greer does not need to be in that movie.
I think the biggest tragedy in this movie is that you get these wonderful explorers, and then like 15 minutes after we introduce them, we have to crash one into the tree. Like that's the real casualty of this movie. Is just what happens to this wonderful car.
This is probably the moment I didn't like the most as a kid, where it was like, go move on to the next dinosaur part. Why are we stuck on this tree scene?
Yeah, you know what? I always had that too, and I think it's effectively tense. Like there's some good suspense here.
It does work, but like I do understand why as a kid I felt that way.
Yeah,
because it's like,
honestly, a part of me still feels that way.
Yeah, because this could be like in an Indiana Jones movie. This isn't utilizing like the dinosaur premise to its set piece. I'd kind of in a way compare this to the train scene in Spider-Man 2, where as a kid, like, it's the most awesome thing ever, and then Doc Ock rips the brakes out, and he jumps off the train, and I'm like completely out of the scene at that point, and I'm just kind of waiting for it to move on. And I kind of like, it's kind of this where it's like, okay, we had like the best set piece of the movie, and now it's just kind of still going, but we've lost the T-Rex part.
That's totally fair. I think the kind of pretentious read thematically there is that everything about this park was a bad idea, and it's like what human beings create in trying to play God coming down to try to kill us. So it's not just the dinosaurs, it's also what we built, so the car is coming at us too.
You know what it needed, though? Is that Jeep needs to hit the ground and then the American flag comes down behind it.
But I think that's hilarious. I think there's something kind of provocative about the very next thing that almost kills them, that almost comes down and crushes them, says Jurassic Park on the side. Like,
mm-hmm. No, that's
it's not just the dinosaurs that it's the idea. You know, it's the commercial. We shouldn't have made this commercial.
It's almost like this movie is saying an actual park wouldn't work.
Well, yeah, but eventually it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it could. To be fair, it could have gotten to any stage. Because here's the thing, and this is where you and I, Austin, might disagree a little bit. Because I think you could sell me potentially on a park could work for a particular amount of time, and then it just becomes Because the only reason this didn't work is because a jerk-face idiot corporate espionage guy turned everything off. You know what I mean? Like, if he hadn't been there, the place probably would have opened. Like, what... You gotta wonder what their experience here would have been if that hadn't happened.
Yeah, well, I think that's why people who don't like that element of it wishes that, like, it wasn't there, and that it was just the park itself, just as an idea.
Yeah.
Failed, as opposed to it fails because of this person that, like, shuts everything down.
Oh, I see.
Like, really?
Yeah. But see, I guess it just depends on what you think the story should be about.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this story is about the hubris before it's about, like, what technologically in 1993 could people control if they tried to do this, if they're trying to, and that's the great gag, that's the best gag in the movie, is the mirror. But,
they're gonna say must go faster.
Oh no, that's great too. But I mean like sight gag, the best visual gag in the movie. Because it goes without saying, but a lot of the reason this movie works is because so much of it is told through what's happening on screen before dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the T-Rex just continues to be the best part. I'm just saying, it's not the raptors that show up in Wayne's World 2.
See, that's the difference between me and you. You know, you're either a T-Rex person or you're a Velociraptor person. You're either the kind of person that thinks that human beings just couldn't control dinosaurs in a theme park, or you're a person like me that thinks that it's just all about what your priorities are, at least for the sake of the way they're telling this story. Because this is something of a parable, right? Like I think you're almost missing the point if you try to argue or talk too much about whether realistically in real life you could make this park thing work and happen. I think it's a lot more about, like, the universe punishing Hammond for not doing this the responsible way, you know, and like people trying to control nature for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. Well, I've always seen it more as just like, this is an inherently bad idea.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess it kind of just depends on where you come from. All I know is that for the T-Rex Raptor thing, my dinosaur is way cooler than your dinosaur is.
Nope.
You're a terrible person for
that's
liking your dinosaur.
That's not true.
Just saying, mine doesn't need to hunt in a pack. And it can be really cool with little stupid arms.
Mine's faster than yours. Mine's smarter than yours. Mine can open doors. Mine
is the coolest Autobot. Just saying.
I'm not a big enough Transformers guy to care.
Everybody loves Grimlock.
The only reason there wasn't a Raptor Transformer before that is because nobody knew what a Velociraptor was until Jurassic Park.
They made a Raptor Dinobot toy for the fourth movie.
Well, I'm sure they did, but I'm saying back in the day with the stuff you're talking about.
Because I went into that movie expecting it to be in the movie.
Yeah, Fidelio, that's the point I was trying to make. He says it's like Frankenstein thematically in that way, just an extension on that idea. Whether it logistically makes sense doesn't really matter.
But I mentioned Frankenstein earlier. They are very, very, like, companion pieces in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's why I think you have to have the Dennis Nedry thing. The espionage idea, because there's always good. The idea is if we were more evolved and enlightened as a species or as a society, and
dinosaurs live in a society.
and
really, though.
maybe arguably there is not a good enough reason to do this, but all things being equal, if we did this for the right reasons, if we actually did it full on for what Hammond's talking about, and we did the science for ourselves and we understood what we were getting ourselves into, then perhaps it could be made to work in the long term. But the idea is the universe is not going to allow that if you've got Dennis Nedry and if you've got people like the Hammond from the book, people that I'm sure Hammond is working with in InGen, people like the lawyer guy.
Yeah. I forgot he drops the claw in that scene. That's a nice character detail, because that's what he uses to scare children.
Yeah, good call.
Just kind of accepting that he drops. So that's a nice symbolic kind of shot to show that
he's had an opportunity. I never thought of that. You're right. He's had an opportunity for change, and he's taken it, and that's the kind of visual representation of that idea. And it is more subtle than the thing I'm about to compare it to, but it's a little bit like the main character in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when he takes just before he goes into Toontown and he takes the drink and he pours it out, and that's the big moment where he goes a completely different direction.
Yeah, no, that's where it's
and has really matured as a character, found himself again.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was saying earlier, where it's your dumb summer blockbuster with a little bit more. It's a little bit smarter than this movie probably should be.
Yeah, there's some literary stuff there, certainly. John Kelling, Book Hammond is an absolute dirtbag. He is. Fidelio also explains the car scene. He's no longer scaring kids. He's saving them from trees like a superhero saves a cat.
Yeah, Indiana Jones.
Like Indiana Jones saves cats.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he whips up into the tree and he climbs up and then he takes them down and he's like, cats. Why did it have to be cats?
I was going to say, he would do it begrudgingly. Indiana Jones wouldn't give a crap about the cats.
Yeah. No, he'd probably just shoot the cat.
I was going to say, he'd be up there because the cat somehow or rather could lead him to whatever item he's trying to get his hands on.
Well, then somebody would be like,
whatever relic.
Did you say cats? And he'd be like, part-time.
Part-time! This is probably the second best character scene. Dialogue exchange. What really brings this scene home, and again, these actors really sell it. This is definitely her best scene. Dern, I think she's fantastic in the scene. But you get to the end of this, and he and she's kind of maybe come closer to convincing him that this isn't going to work out, and that the people are more important than the business. And she goes, "This is good ice cream," and he goes, "Spared no expense." That's the best payoff for a line like that. That's just wonderful.
Can you pass the salt?
And I never thought of this, but it kind of plays like, I don't know, I'm getting into a real pretentious literary place this evening, but it kind of plays like a what am I trying to say? Like end of paradise kind of thing, where it's like the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
I never had that thought, but it's kind of like that. Or maybe more like, we thought we were in heaven, but it turns out we're descending into hell.
Yeah, your kind of road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, there's definitely, mythological comparisons.
Yeah,
I thought of that when she has that line, I was overwhelmed by the power of this place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's very.
There's something that feels mystical
mythical.
about.
Yeah.
Say it again.
It's a very that feels mythical.
Yeah. His parents take him to church.
Is awkward.
What's that?
That's one of the shots that's a little awkward now, is when it backs up and then sneezes.
Yeah. Senior Sticks, what did a T-Rex do to go to hell? Well, he wouldn't, or she, I guess. The dinosaurs didn't go to hell. The dinosaurs are the demons in the first place. I guess. It's not a perfect analogy. But I mean more from like a hero's perspective. Like, if you could see Grant as going through something of a hero's journey, if you could get it into Campbell at all, and I think you can kind of force that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Unknown Passenger just made me finally turn on The Children. He says, imagine this movie with Short Round instead of these two kids. Well, that would be way better. Okay, you're right. These kids suck. The boy's comeuppance, though, is that he had to be in Bohemian Rhapsody. That's what he got for that.
I think the hell idea actually works better in the book, because Hammond could very easily be painted as a devil, and the dinosaurs are like the minions, the demons that he creates. Doesn't work as well for this because we're supposed to actually find Hammond somewhat sympathetic, and his heart's in the right place, but it is the road to hell as opposed to we're in hell, I guess is the best way to put that. Like you were saying. And then I talked over the shirt off shot that everybody makes fun of now, and it's all memey.
Because that shot of...
There's a pop figure of it!
Grant, like, on him is the greatest thing ever made.
Why is that shot in the movie?
Sex appeal, Cap.
Well, that's my question, is that what it's supposed to be? Is there this thought that like, women are going to be all into Jeff Goldblum?
When they were, like, that is a thing. Like,
oh, is it? I didn't know that. Okay.
No, people do have that with him in this movie, and because of that shot, I think that's why it's as memed as it is.
Oh. See, I thought what was funny about it was he's not a guy that ever made sense to be a sex icon, and they tried it and it didn't work. I thought that was the joke.
Oh, no. Wait till we watch The Fly, Cap.
Okay. All right. Well, we talked about this last night on Patreon. I don't understand what attractive men are supposed to look like.
That is true. Cap was like the peak of sexual attraction for a man is Hammond in this movie.
John Kelling says, see, all I'm saying is they could have tossed Tim to the Raptors and nothing in the story would have changed. No, he does end up just being a liability throughout, right? Because if it weren't for him, they would have gotten right over that fence.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that's his comeuppance for being an annoying child, right?
Well, I guess, but then we're supposed to feel really bad and hope he didn't die, and...
Oh, that's just if you're, like, a wimp.
Then
you don't have to feel bad.
Then they go have a whole bunch of dessert before they get attacked by raptors in a kitchen.
When he's got blood coming out of his ears, which means he has brain damage, so...
But then they get back to the visitor center and he's just fine.
Yeah.
No problem. It's water under the bridge.
It became Electro.
From this moment on, his whole world will just be accompanied by dubstep. Wow.
That's the big, like, oh no, they're gonna get eaten by raptors. Then he shoots electricity out, and the American flag falls behind him as he electrocutes all the raptors to death.
Philip Kelton, this movie is about parenthood. I want to do a comparison now between this and Willy Wonka. And I know I bring up Willy Wonka a lot, but there is some of the same kind of ideas about bad parenting in this movie that I had not really thought about that much before now.
Well, I'm pretty sure Willy Wonka eats all the children, too. So you don't see them get out. Or maybe not Willy Wonka, but like the Oompa Loompas at least.
Okay, so you said this is a scene where there's some CG that's a little off.
Yeah, I think the CGI in the scene is...
yeah, those don't look great. You know what, though? I'm going to say this. They look as good as...
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. That's exactly what I was going to say. And that's, what, 7 years after this, 6 years after this?
Yeah. No, I've always thought it's very Phantom Menace-y, this shot. And then, of course, this log is a real practical thing, and I think that's part of what's awkward about it.
Well, and the texture of the skin of these dinosaurs is just like the Gungans. Like,
yeah, it is.
It's exactly the same.
It is impressive, though, to the extent, like, this doesn't look very good now, but it is during the day, and, like, there's a lot of stuff now that is too afraid to do stuff like this in the day. You know, like, we still get a lot of, like, night shots for monsters like this.
I like that this kid is a typical Nickelodeon 90s kid. Like,
he's gonna slime someone?
No, yeah, basically. He's excited about all the gross out stuff. He's like, ooh, blood!
Yeah, eat him.
And I didn't have that. That kind of thing never appealed to me, and that's partly why I didn't watch a lot of Nickelodeon when I was a kid, but a lot of kids of my generation wanted to see rated R movies that would show them a lot of violence and carnage, and they liked all that kind of gross out stuff with Nickelodeon shows.
Well, that's one of the Simpsons bits I quote a lot, is there's a scene like that where all the kids are going to an R-rated movie and they're all excited, but they're going to see Bart and Fink, which from what I understand is like a talkie movie.
It is.
And they're driving by, they're like, yeah, Bart
I
and Fink,
remember
Bart
that.
and Fink. Like, oh, we're going to seek this R-rated movie.
Wasn't that early? I think that was in one of the seasons we reviewed.
Maybe? I don't think so.
Or maybe it's 4 or 5. We will get back to that eventually, folks, by the way. I've had almost a year of taking care of twin baby girls, and it has been impossible to watch that much TV and actually take notes and pay attention to it.
In your defense, we did manage to hit 3 seasons in like a month and a half, so...
That's pretty quick. We'll get back to it.
Pretty well.
Well, I got excited about it. That project was super fun. I didn't want anybody to think we didn't want to keep doing it, because we're going to bring it back. But I've been able to get a lot more stuff out lately, like these bite-sized things. You know, where like I can watch a movie and then go talk about it. But I got to keep a whole season of television in my head. It's a little tougher.
Well, and since I mentioned The Simpsons, I should also mention I can't see this movie without thinking of Billy and the Clonosaurus. I don't know if you've ever seen that bit, but it's Principal Skinner gets fired, and he's in the Quickie Mart, and he's like, I'm going to write, like, this good American novel.
This is ringing a bell.
And he's like, it's going to be about a boy who goes to an amusement park where there's a bunch of dinosaurs that have been cloned, and it'll be called Billy and the Clonosaurus. And then Apu starts screaming at him, and he's like, that's just Jurassic Park. And it's one of those arguments where it skips forward in the conversation instead of seeing it. So it's like, New York Times bestseller, skips forward. One of the best movies ever made.
That's awesome. This is one of those kind of universally loved movies. Like, you don't find a lot of people that don't care for Jurassic Park.
And pretty instantly. And I mean, it is Spielberg. He did kind of have that for a while, where it's like he was just kind of pumping out.
To be fair, though, it had been a few years.
Yeah, this is kind of towards the end, if not one of his last big adventure films like this that takes off like that.
I mean, the last Indiana Jones is in '89, and I don't think there's anything between that and this that was like a big family movie.
Well, what year is this one?
93.
Yes, yeah, I guess, a few years.
And I'm almost not counting the Indiana Jones movies after the first one, just because that's a franchise, and so that's a thing that continues, and they were of a quality.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Temple of Doom is the best Spielberg movie ever made. And I will fight people on that.
I mean, I'm not a big Indiana Jones guy, so I'm not gonna throw my hat in the ring there, but or my whip or anything. But
Well, that's like the a movie that, as a kid, that's my both my parents' favorite Indiana Jones movies. So as a kid, it was like, oh, that's the one that everybody loves the most. And then I hit high school and found out that it's like the one everybody hates the most, except for Crystal Skull.
okay, so I think Grant is a jerk for that. Like, I don't think you can do that.
No, this is absolutely something I would do. I can't begrudge him of that.
That's not. But after everything they've been through, you're gonna make them think that you're gonna give the kids a heart attack doing that. Like, nah,
No,
that's not.
I've absolutely done that before.
That's
I can't
not okay.
begrudge him on that.
But you've not been in this situation though. It's just too
Unfortunately,
extreme.
That is true.
It's too extreme.
I think it's like funny and just kind of like a levity moment of like, like, it's just in the moment you go, oh my god. But when you realize it, it's like, oh, okay, and it's a levity moment for the kid.
I think it's in poor taste if you're in the moment. I'm not even really complaining that the movie did it. I'm just saying if I'm in that situation, I'm gonna punch him in the face. Like, that's not okay.
I'm just saying you would be the Will Smith in that scenario.
Somebody mentioned Hook. I forgot he made that.
That's a more mixed one.
That was in between there. Yeah, well, and he said Hook made money, and yeah, it did, but it wasn't beloved, right? Like, a lot of critics were down on that movie. I think fans were
people are hit or
mixed
miss.
on it.
You can find tons of people that both love and hate that
It's
movie.
polarizing.
Yeah.
And for me, it depends on the watch, man. I have the same
I've
thing
never
with
seen Hook.
I have the same thing with Hook that I have with The Cable Guy. It's like every time I see it, I have a different reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
Edinburgh's great because he feels like a real sophisticated, seasoned kind of stage actor that knows that he's in an action movie. So like when it calls for it, he gets real intense and like he knows what he's in.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you want to see him in more like B horror type stuff.
Yeah, because you get some actors that are a bit more seasoned that when they get into stuff like this, they don't really know how to handle it.
Yeah. And it takes you out because they're either taking the material too seriously or not seriously enough. Where like you have to find that.
Actors who act like they're in Power Rangers when they're not.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you have to know if you're a cartoon character.
Winning actors, where it's like, oh, you get to be in a action movie and you just chew scenery.
Yeah, and he's not doing that. Like he's playing it completely straight. And so he's somewhere between, like, he's in a very serious movie and he's in a cartoon, and so you got to find a little bit of the cartoon, but it's not a full on, Saturday morning experience.
Yeah, exactly.
See, not so funny now, is it?
No, it makes it even funnier.
Not if you're them.
But if you're Grant, because you didn't get electrocuted.
I really like what she does here. When she's just real excited that it worked out, and then, holy crap. And that was, again, timing, right? For comedy and for horror, where...
It's all, yeah, that's why I think a lot of comedian people...
This is Alien right here, or Aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's why I think you get a lot of comedians who end up doing horror, because it's that same kind of, it's like the beat joke or scare, right? It's that timing.
Yeah. This is one, and I also love the choice with that because it's one step forward, two steps back. Where, like, if we achieve something, it's got to be that much harder to get to the end goal.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's scarier because of the way she sells it.
Absolutely. I think her limp is a little funny.
No,
She, like,
I'm with you.
really oversells it, but her performance in that initial scare is really good. And it's not that her, like, running
I'm trying to
away-
give her credit because I've disliked her in things. And
Yeah.
I'm recognizing she's a good actress.
No, of course.
I don't like roles she gets.
How do you think she'll be in the new one?
I don't know because I don't know what the material's gonna be like. I'm kind of expecting everybody to ham it up though.
Yeah.
Clever girl.
I'm interested to see what Sam Neill's like because he's not really done anything in a while.
Yeah.
The most we've gotten from him in a long time, I think, is just that cameo in Ragnarok.
I forgot he did that.
Yeah. I think he's
Is that
coming
just
back
because
for-
Goldblum was there?
Well, I think it's because he's from New Zealand. And that
Oh,
was-
okay. Okay, was
Back
that
in
just a
time.
coincidence? I thought maybe he and Goldblum were just like really good friends or something.
I think that's just a coincidence because I think he's coming back for 4, too. And I mean, maybe Goldblum comes back for that too, but
Yeah.
no, I think it's just like a New Zealand thing. He apparently had no idea what was going on in that movie. I know he's only in one scene.
This movie is also great for as just a textbook on how to structure an action movie. You almost can, and maybe it's not fair to say this because I've seen this movie so many times. I'm sure I didn't have this thought the first time I saw it, but I feel like you can almost instinctually tell where the third act starts. We're in it right now because they walk in and you get the scaffolding and the skeletons, and that's where the big climax is going to take place, and that's all foreshadowing. It's like I feel like instinctually you almost know that like we're in the end game.
Yeah, and like the last little bit was your kind of end of second act action scene.
How long has this food been out?
Too long.
How is the lettuce that fresh?
Movie destroyed.
I can't watch Jurassic Park anymore. The lettuce is too fresh. I can't do it.
This lettuce should be sour.
I also like that we kind of go back to the thing with the ripples in the drink with the Jell-O.
Oh yeah.
Because that could have felt like too much of a double beat, but it's such a different visual. It also helps that it's a different dinosaur.
You're not
That's
focused on it.
yeah.
And it's not rippling because the dinosaur is shaking.
It's 'cause she's
rippling
scared.
She's seeing it.
That's right. It's because she's scared.
And that's your classic, like, building suspense. Watch the reaction, and then cut to what it is that they're seeing.
By the way, you haven't seen Jurassic House, but all of the really great cinematography and camera placement and pacing in the scene is what the climax of that movie thinks it's doing.
Oh.
It's great how insanely pretentious and artsy-fartsy it gets.
The raptor's not smiling, though, in this. I guess he kind of is. He's got a
Yes,
face.
because the Indoraptor is a cartoon character. She suddenly magically turned into an action hero. Like, she's Ripley now.
Yeah, no,
She's just got her undershirt on now, and
Yeah.
she's ready to go to town. Somebody give her a big gun. Like,
Get away from those kids, you jerk.
something else we learned from Jurassic House is that the reason that the raptors can open doors is
Did
because
they give that an explanation?
No, just let me finish this because it's hilarious. No, not really. But what I was gonna say is we're told in that movie that they're the most intelligent species that ever lived. And see if you can track it, because if you go back to this, they can open doors, and that tells you how super intelligent they are. They're just one step away from getting on the internet. There was some way from inventing the internet.
I don't do this anymore, but when I was a kid, I guess after that's not the magic word. My second most quoted thing in this movie is the raptor call.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome. They just sound like they're yelling "con" without the end.
I wonder if anybody has tried to make a replica of the like raptor larynx that you blow into and it makes that sound.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Because if they had, I want one. I want a thing that I can blow into and it does that.
I want somebody to take the audio from this and put it over Shatner in Wrath of Khan. Where it's like he's like, "Ah!"
John Kelling. That was louder than I meant it to be. John Kelling said, "Lettuce is fresh, spared no expense."
It's filled with nice, tasty preservatives.
He's very excited about the Jell-O. He was talking about that earlier. He's the best Jell-O in cinematic history. I agree. That is true. Fidelio, it's not a good movie, but I appreciate how weird it is. That's where I'm at with it. And I'm not meeting a lot of people that feel the same way I do about Jurassic House, Fidelio, so I appreciate that you and I are kindred spirits with this. How did it turn out like that?
Yeah, they're not even that intelligent. This one just runs into a reflection. Yeah.
Well, maybe they didn't build them right in the first place, but then with the Indoraptor, they really figured out how intelligent they were supposed to be.
The thing they were missing is a blue strip.
Well, the Indoraptor doesn't have that.
I just mean for the raptor.
Oh, okay. John Kelling, raptors are absolutely savage on 4chan.
Okay.
Because I said that they're one step away from inventing the internet.
I thought raptors were more Redditors, to be honest.
No, when they get finished with this movie, they're going to go make their own films. You know, that's a really good detail that I always kind of missed. That he is... Because I thought he was just catching his breath. He's so tired, he nearly falls asleep. I never really caught that.
Oh, I always thought he was just catching his breath, too. And, like, it was like, you know, 'cause you're scared, we're like, oh, man.
I may be wrong, but here looking at it, it looked like he was just, like, nearly about to pass out. Maybe it's because he was bleeding from his ears earlier.
Yeah, he's got brain damage. So this is my favorite thing to complain about in this movie.
Go ahead.
Laura Dern is an idiot. Because, so Sam Neill is holding this door shut, right?
Well, she has to be stupider because now she's an action hero. Sorry, good.
No, she's holding the edge of the door where the wall is, so she's really not doing anything. And there's a shotgun right in front of them. She just needs to step away from the door, pick it up.
Oh, so the problem is she thinks she's an action hero, but she's not doing action hero things.
No, she's just being stupid.
I've also mentioned this before, but I cannot stand the 3D icons in the computer. That's so stupid.
Laura Dern, just get up and pick up the shotgun. You're not doing anything.
Let's just make it as inefficient as possible so that it looks more 3D and realistic. Because VR is the way of the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, she'd be done by now if she could just open folders like a normal person.
Well, it's because it was programmed by Dennis Nedry. He's a giant a-hole.
I actually think you wouldn't have had this movie if only Hammond had brought somebody that was willing to work cheaper than Nedry. Okay, so people are celebrating, which means something bad is about to happen.
What do you mean? The music's really exciting.
Yeah, but that can turn on a dime.
Da-na-na-na. Like you said, the Raptors are gonna go make their own movie now. That's what they're gonna go make Citizen Ka.
Citizen Ka!
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 Although I guess it wouldn't really matter if Laura Dern got the shotgun because they immediately shoot and like lose all their bullets anyways and have to run away.
There's a decent amount of screaming and yelling in this movie. Hammond gets the best yell.
Oh yeah,
It's great.
when Laura Dern's got some good screams.
Wait, does he drop the ladder? Because if they can open doors, maybe they can climb ladders?
They've learned to.
This
climb
is my
ladders.
favorite shot in the whole movie.
The raptor's head that comes up.
The code over the raptor
code.
head. It's so cool.
Oh, of course.
They're kind of bragging about how realistic they made that look when they do that.
Oh yeah.
I think, where they're like, look, it's physical, it's not CG, we put code on top of it. This one is. Doesn't look quite as good.
No, the shot where she falls in, that raptor does not look real.
That
at
doesn't
all.
look great.
No.
You know what, though? You can get away with more of that occasional shoddy CG when the rest of it looks so realistic, as long as it's not too shoddy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the brilliance of this movie in terms of its effects, is that there's a mix. So you walk away going, oh wow, they looked so real, because in a lot of places they are real things.
Yeah, like, I mean, I guess the problem with that philosophy is the ones that aren't real might look less real by comparison.
And there is a little bit of that.
There's a little bit of that.
It's not too bad. But like when I think of this movie, I don't think of, like with the T-Rex, for example, I don't think of the shots where it's moving, because that's all CGI. I think of the shots, where it's just the head animatronic moving around. That's the kind of stuff you walk away with. That, and I think of the American flag, but that's not actually there.
Well, and this does also have that, like, despite how expensive this movie did cost to make, this has that art out of adversity thing that you don't get as much anymore, because they had a bigger climax in mind that they decided they weren't able to shoot, so they ended up having it take place here. And now we would do everything in CG, so whatever you could imagine you'd do anyway. And so we ended up with a better.
The river scene was supposed to be?
I can't remember anymore.
Oh, okay. I knew that was supposed to be in this movie, but they couldn't make it work. I didn't know if that was the climax.
Well, and the other thing I don't know if you're aware of, but the reason that there's so much scaffolding around is because they were working on this till the 11th hour, and they didn't actually get the whole set built. So they decided to just try to make it look like it wasn't finished yet, because the park is still in progress, and it ends up being better.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Because it feels more like a work in progress, so they use that to their advantage. Again, now we would just build half of it and do the rest of it in CG and call it good. Here it is.
See, this was the other thing where it was like the T-Rex is the cool one as a kid. Like, I just destroyed all these raptors.
No, I know.
Suck.
It's fair. I still love them. There's a... No, I've been trying not to tear up this whole time. I have a really tough time with the end of this movie. Because you don't have to remind me that they killed the raptors, okay? They need to go make their own movie.
The T-Rex just crushed that one in his jaw and told him it was stupid.
You hurt my feelings.
Good. Raptor lover.
I'm gonna leave my own commentary.
You're like Hammond looking over his failed park.
Hey, the top of Hammond's cane, Vince gave me one of those as a paperweight for my birthday last year.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I think I have that on my desk here somewhere.
You know what it kind of looks like now that we've read it?
There it is.
Turk's Infinity Stone.
In Infinity Wars?
In Infinity Wars, yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's awesome. Look, he learned to like children.
He did. That was his whole arc.
Do you think they could have gotten away with calling this movie Jurassic Park bracket How I Learned to Stop Hating Children and like them instead.
It would have read a little more pretentious.
Yeah,
I will say.
maybe a little.
It would have seemed a little derivative.
Hmm. Possibly. What if you put like a Comcast company after it at the beginning?
People would have been like, I don't understand how this relates to Doctor Strangelove at all. We did it!
We did it. Look at that glare on the camera.
Williams does the same thing he does with his score with this, like he does with a lot of action movies and kind of bigger blockbuster things, where there are kind of two themes that are sort of intertwined, and a lot of people don't think of it as two, but it is. Like Superman has that, right? I think Star Wars kind of does, and this does that too, where it's got the kind of bombastic fanfare, bum 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 bum, and then it's got the more subtle, like often in piano theme that we're hearing right now in strings and not piano, but BD Wong, I couldn't think of his name.
Yep.
He was in Gotham, and that was very strange.
Yeah, he's Hugo Strange.
He was Hugo Strange, and he was great. Speaking of people who know what they're in, because this was not a cartoon, that was. So he gave a Power Rangers performance, and it needed it. That was correct.
Yeah, because after they did that, because Hugo Strange is in Batman vs. Two-Face, but he's just comic book Hugo Strange.
Yep.
I always thought that was weird.
Yeah.
And I always thought since they had just done an Asian Hugo Strange in that show, they should have got George Takei to do it for that movie, to have like an actor from the time.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the problem with it, it's weird that we're talking about this now, but the problem is, besides the Shatner thing, they just didn't think to go to like other actors at the time and try to pattern characters off of them because of like licensing and stuff. Like you can't just make a character look like an actor. You have to get permission for that. So you're right. Like if they could have gone to Decay and been like, we've got Shatner, well, then he would have done it. But
well, you just have to be like, we have this guy. Like, I don't even really know who he is. Like, I don't.
That's a terrific point, though. I didn't like that the 66 comics just went with kind of generic looks for their characters. But what else were they gonna do?
Yeah. No, because it's a licensing nightmare. Absolutely. How do you feel about the after credits scene of this movie, Cap, where Nick Fury says, T-Rex, you're in a bigger universe?
Yeah, I don't understand why people want the robot arm. They just didn't sit through the rest of the movie to see it. It's there. Like, he's got it.
The raptor bit out his eye. And then last time I trusted a raptor, I lost an eye.
He shows up, you're like, God, how much time has passed from the end of this movie to this after credit scene?
Where did your hair go? He walks in and he's like, we live in a world full of sharks and Indiana Joneses and Schindler's List.
And Martians. And Schindlers. We live in a world of Schindlers and lists.
Well, that was going to be the next like big tie-in movie, was going to be Schindler on the Roof. It's going to be the crossover.
Despite how big of an effects movie this is, it's still kind of weird, 25 years later, going back to this and seeing just how short these credits are in comparison to what we get now.
You don't get, like, the big, everybody?
Oh my god!
This is a Stan Winston movie, too, which is probably why it looks so good, because Stan Winston's the man.
Oh yeah, of course. John Kelly, there's one janitor that got left behind on the island because he had headphones in and wasn't paying attention. We never see him again. Yeah, I can't believe we got through this whole commentary and I never brought up the lysine contingency. It's like all I ever talk about with these movies. We'll talk about it when we get to 2, though. Because you asked me the other day if it's mentioned anywhere in the movies, and it gets... And it's Sam Jackson that mentions it. Because there's that question of, well, what happens if, they got off the island, or, how do you control them? And that's a big thing in the book that goes... Crichton goes in massive detail about it, and like how they're what the contingency is in case they can't control them, and the idea is there's this substance that the body needs that they don't give them, or that they have to give them, and if their body doesn't produce it naturally, is the idea, and they make it more prominent and clearer in the second one.
Yeah,
you kind of have to in order to explain how they survived. But if you didn't pick up on it, it would be really easy to just go, "Oh, it's really stupid. They didn't have any kind of plan for that."
Because isn't that a big thing in the book? Is that the raptors kind of figure out what they can eat that has it?
That's the big... Yes. Well, actually, I guess a lot of the dinosaurs do, because the big twist at the end of the book is, the whole island gets napalmed. And that's a big question I always have in this movie, is why doesn't that happen? Like, why don't they do what they do in the book? But I guess maybe the idea is that the other people around the island, around Costa Rica, don't really know what's happening there. Because if memory serves in the book, I don't think it's... I don't think it's InGen that does it. I think it's the government of the surrounding islands that does it. I might be wrong about that. I might be forgetting it, what exactly happens there.
Well, and this is like classic older movie, just in the sense that we don't really have a lot of downtime after everything's happened. Like, we get on the helicopter and that's it, folks. Like,
yeah.
So we don't really have time to jump in and go back and nuke the island and all that stuff, or any of the fallout.
You know what? That's a really good point. Yeah, it could happen. I mean, it didn't, according to the sequels, but you're right. It could have. Like, we don't see the aftermath at all, and that's kind of a Spielberg staple, right? Well, like, when the story's over, the story's over. Like,
you got a lot more of that back then. Well, now we have a tendency of lingering, and you have moments where you're like, oh, you probably could have ended this a little bit earlier.
Yeah. He knows that stories are occasion for story, and then conflict, and then resolution, and that there's no occasion for story anymore. So you get out, and that's not to say that you should never show any kind of aftermath. But it's pretty textbook. Like, Poltergeist does exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm. No, at this time it's like, okay, we're done. Boom, hit the credits.
Yeah, that's real old school movie making, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Not really a lot of epilogues in that way.
But obviously, novels would have that a lot more, and Crichton wanted some kind of, exciting sting at the end of his book. So he weirdly it's so strange, because he almost sets up Lost World with no intention on writing another book. And the premise is kind of right there, even though it doesn't feel like a thing that needs a sequel or would really have legs. Because it's like, okay, well, there's a way to keep dinosaurs going, and also, interestingly, to have it relate to the theme of the piece, which is life finds a way and man can't control nature, right? So, of course, we screwed up, didn't know how to control this. The dinosaurs have to stick around because we can't control them. But then it's like, well, that's not... I said premise. It's not really a premise for a story so much as just a clear thing that might continue. Like, it's still part of that first story. But it sort of feels like sequel bait when you read it, and then you find out that there's only another book because Spielberg didn't really know what to do with a sequel, but it was too popular, so he wanted one, so he went to Crichton and begged him to write another book. And that's why Lost World exists, and why Ian Malcolm, even though he dies at the end, his death is retconned. Not kidding. Like, it's not just we find out that he survived. Like, he was dead. Like, dead. And he just completely retcons it.
Yeah, well, in Spielberg, there's a bit of that. I mean, maybe not even a bit, like complete, like the singer from Days of Future Past to Apocalypse thing, where he does this one, and it's like, oh man, like I really want to do a second one, and then he gets into the second one, and it's like, eh. And part of that is he literally phoned in his directing. 'Cause he had like a sick child or something, and he directed it like over the phone.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of a mess.
That explains everything, though.
Yep.
No,
No, he literally phoned it in.
it'll be interesting to talk about that when we watch it.
Yeah,
Because
'cause I
that
think
movie,
that's my least favorite.
it fails at a lot of what this movie does right, especially in pacing and structure, where, like, it's the opposite of 3, where it just keeps going.
Yeah, well, and then
3 is like, oh, really, that's it? And 2, it's like, you're looking at your watch, and why am I still sitting here?
yeah, and then you have the kid thing, but the kids in this movie aren't doing gymnastics to kick raptors out windows.
Yeah, and this might be a weird point, but I saw that again recently because my kids wanted to watch through all the Jurassic Park movies before the new one comes out, and it's too dark, like visually dark.
Just lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. The only
And I
really-
get that it's in the jungle and it's late at night, but like, I don't know, it's Jurassic Park, it's not Predator. It's like it wants to be Predator or something, and I don't think it works.
when I think Lost World is a movie that is entirely just its climax, and the rest of the movie is just kind of building to that climax, which is like the only kind of cool thing that somebody went, oh, wouldn't this be a neat idea?
But see, that's what's weird about it. Now we're just reviewing that movie. What's weird about it is you're right retroactively, but it doesn't feel like it's building to anything. So when you finally get there, it feels like almost a second ending. It's like the movie was over. And
Oh
then,
yeah, when you're watching it, it doesn't feel like you're building to that moment, but afterwards it's like, oh, somebody thought of, hey, what if we brought the T-Rex into the city? Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be really cool? And then they went, okay, how do we get that? It's kind of like, from my understanding, the fifth movie is just, we want to do a movie where the dinosaurs exist with everybody. How do we get to that point?
well, yeah. But that's what I was gonna say is that's maybe what the second movie should have done though. Like imagine if, I mean, maybe people would have liked it even less. But when you get to the T-Rex is in a big city, that kind of wants to be a movie. Like it might have been nice if they had made that 2 movies.
Yeah,
Because I want to say it would have been stretched too far, but like by the time we got there, it felt like we had a whole movie's worth of material. I mean, I'm kind of bored. It's not a great movie, but like I'm too tired by the time the T-Rex finally does cool stuff. And also,
Yeah.
they didn't bring any raptors, so I didn't care. But
No, because the best shot in that movie is the T-Rex looking up and it's got the dog house like hanging from its mouth.
they do some real fun monster movie stuff in the city with that, with like traffic lights and things.
Yeah, it's way cooler than the '98 Godzilla movie.
No, it is, absolutely. Well, and it doesn't have the convoluted, like, eggs and that whole nonsense.
Well, it doesn't have. Well, and that movie does have raptors.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're not cool.
No, that is true.
They're unfortunate raptors.
Lost World doesn't have almost the entire cast of The Simpsons for no reason. Like '98 Godzilla.
Wait, really?
Yeah, like the majority, like they have like half the cast of The Simpsons in it, and the weirdest part
I didn't know
is
that. We should. Are we gonna have to review it on our Simpsons show?
Yeah, no, go back to that movie. Just watch the news scenes, because the guy that they have playing, like the news reporter, is the guy who voices Kent Brockman, and he's just doing Kent Brockman.
That's amazing. I didn't remember that.
Oh yeah, it's very bizarre.
I actually went to the theater and saw the riff tracks live for that movie. That was fun.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, I left this timer going, but the movie's over. Anyway, well, folks,
Confused.
We're going to go ahead and get going. We just kept talking after the movie. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm taking next week off from at least regular content. I'll be doing a couple live shows on the road, but I'm going to be out of town with my son in Branson, Missouri. He's got a dance competition, and I've got to take him to that. So I'm going to be out of town. And then the week after, we'll be back to regular scheduled programming. And pretty soon, Austin and I will put out a poll for the Friday selection board on Patreon, so consider signing up there if you are so inclined, and you can help us pick the next thing. I'm excited to see what things from our insane list that just keeps growing and growing that Austin decides to pick, and I don't know what I'm pulling yet, but...
Well, yeah, and I should say this last one that we got for this one was really close. It was a three-way tie at one point between this, the original Predator, and Marvel vs. DC.
Yeah, we were gonna get back to Amalgam, revisit that, but
nobody voted for Starman, which my heart is hurt, but that's okay.
I feel like what's gonna happen is maybe we're gonna have a rule where if a thing doesn't get picked enough times that one of us really wants to do, then we'll have a week every so often where we just go, okay, screw it, we're picking it. I know 5 people will watch it, but this is what we're doing, okay?
No, I'm just impressed that somebody voted for Starman, because I assume nobody would. But that movie's awesome.
You got one. I've never seen it. I think the problem with that is just it's obscure. A lot of people don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think you would like Starman. That movie's really good.
I think my dad knows that movie and told me at one point I should see it, but...
And it's the formula of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is really weird.
Oh. Not the movie, but Sonic the Hedgehog?
No, like the movie. Like,
the movie.
Really weird. It's really weird how many parallels it has to the Sonic movie, considering Carpenter wanted to make a Sonic movie.
Oh, that's really strange. Yeah, I didn't know that. Now I'm even more interested in it.
Yeah, like you get stuff like, where he goes to the bar and stuff. It's like a road trip movie with these two characters. One of them's, an alien. But anyways, nobody cares about Starman. Except for me.
But I'm sure at some point we'll end up talking about it. Thanks a lot for being here, folks. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan. This